Karen Virgil, Creative Katie here, and welcome to my channel, Mixed Media Creations. Take time to hit the subscribe button, and if you hit the bell, you can select the option to be notified as soon as I upload new videos. If you care to support my channel, you can shop through my Amazon influencer links or make a donation through my PayPal link. Both of these links can be found in the description box below. I've entitled this one, Oh, the Possibili-Teas. So today I am working on a 10 by 20 canvas, and I absolutely am in love with this size. And I have my Crafters Workshop Light and Fluffy Modeling Paste and a Crafters Workshop stencil, Ripples, which I haven't used much, but I am falling in love with this one. I like it. It's a larger scale. Now, at this time, I am merely putting down texture, pattern, color onto the canvas. Really had no idea where this was going to go. And you know what? That's okay. I just know that I want some texture, visual and physical. This is an Art Minds stencil. It was a trio, and you can buy those at Michael's. But I like the deep teardrops. So this background is fairly texturized. And I just clean up whatever I don't want. Sometimes I put the modeling paste on after the color. Sometimes, like this, I put it on before. Each one gives a slightly different effect, so play with it. See which one you like best. As always, when you use modeling paste, make sure you clean those stencils. So now I have quinacridone magenta here. It's just in a little container. And I am putting it on with my fingers, my favorite way. And I'm kind of rubbing it into the nooks and crannies of the texture paste. Got some cadmium yellow. And I'm wanting this to blend. I know that if I blend these two colors, it's going to make an orange, right? So I'm using what I know about how colors blend. And if you're sticking to colors that are near each other on the color wheel, they will blend nicely. If they're across from the color wheel, don't put them next to each other and mix them up when they're wet, because they will potentially make mud. Some deep violet. And again, I'm avoiding trying to put the deep violet next to the yellow because that potentially could get me an ugly color. So I'm not blending it there, but I am blending it with the quinacridone magenta because the pink and the violet are going to work nice together. But the purple and yellow look really good together. They really pop. Some places I add more paint so it's more opaque, a darker color, and other places I have less, and that just gives visual interest. I'm going around the edges because, again, as I said, at this time I don't know where this canvas is going to go. I just want to have fun. I've been doing a lot of little 4x4 mini canvases. Now I'm I believe this is Artist Loft Turquoise. It's a new color I found and I love it. It's a bluey turquoise, and it just really pops in here. It's going to go well with any of these colors except maybe the yellow, although the yellow and blue are going to make green, but I really don't want to go green here, so I'm avoiding mixing the yellow and the blue. I'm overlapping in some places. In some cases, I'm dipping my fingers in some of the deep violet off camera with the blue because I want that mixy color. I want the tones of the colors that I'm using, and I want whatever shades I get by blending them as well. Adding a little bit more yellow back in, filling in the gaps. And I kind of pop here and there. It's not like I start at the top of the canvas and keep going. I'm loving the orange that comes out of mixing the quinacridone magenta and the yellow. I'm really developing a love of blending those colors on the canvas, and you come up with some incredible shades and colors that way. So don't be afraid to mix your colors and come up with something totally unique. You're going to discover something wonderful. Just filling in any white spots. This is very bright. I typically don't have a whole lot of yellow in my paintings, although I have learned that if you have some yellow anywhere in it, it just seems to set off the composition so much better. But this one's very forefront. So now I'm thinning the colors that I had and just kind of getting in, because there's a little bits in the canvas where you can still see the white poking through. And I find if you thin the paint and just kind of fit it in there, it fills in those little white particles. It's just me being a perfectionist. Applying the paint with a brush here gives a little bit of a different effect. Also doing it kind of at an angle gives a different effect too. I always seem to go at an angle. I'm not sure why. I can't go straight up and down or side to side. So now that we have texture, a little bit of pattern in that texture and color, now I'm going to add some more pattern, and I'm using this Crazy Waves Crafters Workshop stencil, and it has 4 different patterns in it, and I really am liking this one. And I'm using the same colors that we have in the background, and I'm using darker and lighter colors, and this is where you're kind of drawing everything, all those different colors that are in the background, you're kind of making them work together. So I'm dipping my sponge into the purple, into the blue. This is a bottom of a plastic paper plate holder. Makes a great stencil, gives some great marking. Usually I do more than one color with the same mark making tool, be it a stencil or a found one. Here I'm applying the yellow with the embroidery mesh, plastic embroidery mesh. Again, a great stamp. And I believe this is Prussian blue, and I'm coming back with my homemade stencil, my mark making tool. I just want to make this filled with pattern and color. Corrugated cardboard makes a nice stamp as well, and I'm just stamping with the Prussian blue. Different stamps and stencils of different sizes. Some are very big and bold. This one's very fine, as was the embroidery mesh. That all builds interest. I'm getting the sides here. Working on a bigger canvas like this is really challenging to get it all into fit camera view. Now adding some quinacridone magenta, and I've got some shelf liner. Another gorgeous mark making tool. Another different kind of shelf liner, adding some white. I need this to be a little lighter. It was getting a little dark for me. And doing those edges. I feel like I've thrown everything at this canvas but the kitchen sink. I've been reaching more and more for my mark making tools. And loving the effect that they're giving. Thinking about what I want to add now. This is Tiny Dots, Crafter's Workshop. Nope, I'm not going to use that. This one's Retroverse from the Crafter's Workshop. And I'm using Prussian blue. So I kind of alternate colors and just see what looks good. But the colors that I'm using are basically the same as those in the back, with the addition of the Prussian blue, which is a darker one, and the white. Now I've gotten some gold, because we need some bling on this canvas, you know it. And the gold works here because we have the yellow. Don't forget to turn your canvas, see it from different angles. And I'm trying really hard not to be so predictable and patterned and organized in my placement. I want a little bit of randomness in here. I think I'm looking for some more mark making tools, and I get some lids, and I'm just stamping with the lids. I'm getting little circles or partial circles. I'm not too worried. I just stamp it in the gold paint and stamp it on there. Then I have a block, a child's plastic block, and I use it for stamping, and it makes a really interesting mark on here. Actually, it has a circle. It's a square with a little circle inside it. So raid your children's toy box and see what kind of mark making tools you have there. So this is where it sat for a good couple weeks. I knew I wanted to do teacups, but I didn't know what I wanted, how I wanted to organize it, if I was going to go negative painting or what I was going to do. And then today I just decided that I'm going to make basically 4 panels on this, very similar to the 5x7 that I did, my creativity cup. I was going to, always be related to that, but for some reason, I just couldn't finish this canvas, and I didn't want to hide this luscious, beautiful color and pattern that I have here. So since this is 20 inches across, I've just divided this into 5-inch sections. I measured off top and bottom 5 inches, and then I'm using this T-square to draw a straight line. So for placement. Now I wanted to cut out some teacups using my gel prints, and I just went through my gel prints and colored papers looking for things that had pattern but not too much pattern, because there's a lot going on in this background. And I was pulling colors that are already in the background. I didn't want to introduce anything else. So I ended up with that orangey yellow, the deep violet, the teal, and quinacridone magenta. And I was looking at patterns, again, that were there but not in your face, but also that had some of the other colors in there. So I had cut a template of a cup. Now I want this cup to be able to go both ways. So if you fold the paper over, trace the template, and cut it out, you're going to have each cup kind of facing a different direction. I want to kind of alternate each section back and forth. I do the rest of the cutting off camera. So there's an awful lot of the finishing part of this canvas that I did off camera because it's just time consuming and you don't need to watch me doing all of it. Then I'm just using an X-Acto knife to cut out this part of for the cup. So now that I have the cups that I've done, and I ended up cutting out way more than I needed, and that's okay because they'll go into my stash. Now I want to mark kind of the midpoint here. It's 10 inches across, so I'm marking the 5-inch mark here. That's just so I can kind of eyeball where the cups are going to go. I was trying to measure and make it exact in each one, and in the end I eyeballed it. So I place the Collage cup down with gel medium, matte finish. And there is texture there, so it takes some doing. I find after putting it with the brush, pushing it with my fingers. I grabbed the key card here to do it, but you got to watch out because of the texture. I didn't want that to show too much. So I'm kind of putting a blank one where the other teacup would go, just to get the placement correct in my head. So now I'm taking the template and just using the Stabilo all pencil in white. Now to make sure that the orientation of the two cups is the same, I'm just kind of using the 5x7 canvas that I have, but I could have used the one below. I just want them to be fairly close. In hindsight, I should have used the darker Stabilo all pencil, not the white. And you'll see later why. I'll point that out as well. So at this point I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should have done them all Collage cups. I said, no, do what your first instincts told you. So I've got some flow medium, and that just helps to float the acrylic. And I start off with Prussian blue, but as you can see, it's just simply not dark enough. So I grab the Payne's Gray, and I'm shading on the outside of the one cup to start off with. I need to make these cups pop from this background. And that's what all the shading and highlighting that I'm going to be doing is going to do. Then I'm putting the blue, the Payne's Gray, on the edge of the paper cup. And with this, as always, I'm coming back, I'm letting it dry, put a little bit, build up those layers. You can always add more. So this was a fairly time-consuming process. And then I'm putting the dark Payne's Gray on the outside of the cup as well. And sometimes I do one, sometimes I do the other, and sometimes, like on here, I've done both. And I think I've done both here because this background's pretty intense. And I really need these cups to pop. In the end, and I'm not sure if that's on camera or not, but I do come back and I shade with black. I should have gone even with a darker color, especially with that really bold background. So if I'd gone directly to the black, I might have saved myself some time, but you learn as you go. So here, as I go with the black or the Payne's gray, because it's white, it's kind of turning it gray. So that was causing the problem, and that's why I should have used the darker Stabilo all pencil, either a black one or the navy. If you don't have a Stabilo all pencil, you can use watercolor pencils, Inktense pencils. So here I'm just getting rid of the white, and some of the shading disappears with that, so I go reapply, no problems. So now I'm using white, and I'm going to go on the inside of the cups and add highlights. And this is where it just starts to really pop from the background. You know, as you go, it's like, oh, this isn't going to work. And it's like, no, you need to do the shading. You need the dark, then the light. And they each do their part. Some places I get more opaque white. Excuse me. And again, I go back, I dry, I come back, add more. What I don't want this to look like is that I took a marker and went traced around it. I want it a little bit more organic than that. There's nothing wrong with tracing it. It's just not the look I'm going for. And then I'm doing it the same with the back, the cup in the back, where I'm just using negative painting to make the cup shape. I'm not, it's not actually a collaged item. But you won't tell because it looks like it's in the distance. Then I have the black, and I'm putting around the edges. I want to frame this a little bit. So I start with just kind of shading it, thinking, okay, maybe that'll be enough, because I did that on the lines that separate each section. And then I decide, you know what, I like how that black is looking, so then I go and I'm shading. Wherever I've put the Payne's gray before, I'm going over it with black. I want it to be darker. I like how it's looking. It's helping to make these cups stand out from the background. Then I decide to get the Ranger blending foam and go around the edge with a little bit more stronger black. And then I end up doing the sides in black. I know I did all that work, but it needed to be grounded a little bit more. You can still see the pattern through it. So I brainstormed a bunch of my T's. I've got Serenity and Simplicity, Generosity, Tranquility, and that's what's going on each of these cups. At one time I was going to have kind of a heading, oh, the possibilities, and these, but that idea just never came together. So I'm gluing this down with matte medium, and then I'm getting my fine liner bottle out, and I'm doing dashes all the way around. And again, this is going to help make these cups stand out from the background. And I'm very definitely using black and white to build that contrast to make these things pop. I often get asked in the comment section, what's in these fine liner bottles? It's regular Liquitex Basics acrylic paint that I've thinned. And I grab this stencil and I'm just making a little steam come out in a little heart. Then I flip it up and I've masked off parts of this stencil that I don't want. Then I'm coming in with the fine liner bottle just to make them darker. You can eyeball this and just draw it in if you want to, but I'm showing you a way of doing it if you just don't have the confidence to just freehand. Look at your stencils. There's always little spirals and curlicues. Just using the micron pen to outline. Chose not to use the fine liner because I wanted this to be finer than what would come out. And then just signing my work at the bottom. This will be hanging in a coffee shop very soon. So I, hope those bright colors really perk up the place. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the close-ups of the background and the finished product. I thoroughly enjoyed doing this one. Love the bright, bright, bright colors. Give it a try. If you don't want to do a big canvas, do a 5x7. Go have some fun and play.